So you're looking for a new sports car to drive, but you don't want it to break the bank or spend all of its time in the shop. Well, I'm glad that you clicked on this video because I'm about to tell you about 5 ultra reliable sports cars that you can pick up today and be able to daily drive them and track drive them with absolutely no problems whatsoever. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the video. Now for number 1, let's go ahead and get the obvious car out of the way. For number 1, it's going to be really any Chevy LS car. Even if you want to go all the way back to the LS1 and pick up a Firebird or an old Ford Gen Camaro, or you want to pick up a C5 Corvette, those are going to be extremely reliable. And even though the earlier LS engines were not as reliable as you'd modify them up to higher horsepowers, as you go through the years with stuff like the LS3 motor, for example, or the LS6, LS7, LS9, you get up into the Pontiac GTO, new Camaros, C7 Corvette, then you're starting to get into LS motors that are more suited for modifying and putting out higher horsepower numbers. Now, there really are LS cars for every kind of budget. If you need a car to take to work every day and you only want something like an exhaust on it, and you just want to hear the nice sound, but you still need the reliability and comfort of a normal car, you can pick up a Pontiac GTO. If you want something older to modify that's a lot cheaper, such as a Ford Gen Camaro or an old Firebird or a C5 Corvette, for things such as drag racing, you can do that. If you want to pick up a newer car for more track-oriented driving or high horsepower street rolls, they have that too. Over 20 years of the LS engine, there are just so many cars to pick from, and you really can't go wrong with any car. It's why I included the whole platform of the Chevy LS. You just can't go wrong with an LS motor. And now for the second car on this list, it is essentially the Chevy LS for Japan. It's the Honda Civic, more specifically the Honda Civic Si or the Type R, because those are the more sportier versions of the Honda Civic. And the cool thing about the Honda Civic is that there are so many different engine series that you can choose from. For example, you can go with a B series car, you could go with a K series car, you could go with an F series car, you could go with a D series car, the list goes on and on and on. And now there are some engines that are more desirable than others, such as maybe the B series or the K series, for example. But for every kind of budget, just like with the LS, there will be a car and a motor that can fit your wants and needs. For example, there are Honda Civics that are 4 doors and have the good motors. There are Honda Civics that are 2 doors and have maybe the less desirable motors, but you can still have fun in the car. Not to mention how cheap these cars are to fix and to modify, and for some of the motors, such as the B series motor, for example, you can bring a lot of power into the car, and especially in the older Honda Civics that don't weigh that much, you put a B series in it, beef it up, maybe a turbo or something, throw in a laptop into the passenger seat, and you have yourself an extremely fast car that will hardly ever even break down on you because, again, it's a Honda Civic. It's going to be reliable no matter what. Now for the third car on this list, it's quite a bit of a surprise. It is the Porsche Boxster or Porsche Cayman of the 987 generation. Now both these cars feature a flat 6, of course, naturally aspirated. We all know that. The Boxster features a convertible version and the Cayman is the hardtop version, of course. And back in the day with all of the classic Porsches, they were all air-cooled, and so they were very reliable and had nice ceilings to modify the car, and of course you could take them out on the track, beat them up a little bit, and still drive it home at night. But since the early 2000s, late 90s, whenever they introduced the water-cooled Porsches, they had a bit of issues, such as the 986 generation of the Boxster and the 996 generation of the 911. Both of these cars had issues, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that Porsche at the time was switching over from the air-cooled engines to the water-cooled engines. And that was a big issue until they fixed it with the 987 Cayman and Boxster generation, and now these cars are very reliable. You can find them pretty cheap too. The Boxster is generally cheaper than the Cayman. They don't have huge ceilings of being able to modify them simply because they're a naturally aspirated flat 6. They're not really meant to be modified that much, just taken out on the back roads and enjoyed. And even though European car makers have been kind of hit or miss on their cars in the past 20-30 years or so, because of the introduction of new technologies and new engines, for example, this generation of Porsche with the Cayman and the Boxster is fairly reliable. It's actually extremely reliable for what it is, you know, a German sports car that you can take on the track. It's very reliable in that regard, and it has a ton of high marks with critics, with magazines, and even the enthusiasts that own the car themselves. And now I just wanted to say, if you're enjoying the video so far, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, of course. But on to the fourth car on this list, and this is a car that I actually have personal experience with. It is the Scion FRS Subaru BRZ Toyota 86. The first generation, of course, not the brand new one. And now, while I wouldn't recommend the 2013 or 2014 models to people because they did have some issues, and if you go into forums for the FRS and the BRZ, you can see that the actual problems that these cars had weren't necessarily expensive, but they were pretty costly. But in the year 2015, Toyota and Subaru really tightened it up, and from 2015 onwards, these cars have been extremely solid. And now, whenever I got my FRS, I saw that it was an FA20, it's a flat four, it's a Subaru motor. Okay, it's gonna leak oil, it's probably gonna be not super reliable, but I got my car at around 50,000 miles, and I have close to 120,000 miles on it now. And the only thing I've had to do is replace the clutch because I have a manual transmission. After so many miles, you know, you just kind of have to do it. It's with any car. I replaced it around 100,000 mile mark, 110,000 mile mark, so it was very recent. And I have a super minor oil leak. Of course, it's a Subaru, it's gonna leak oil, but I have one, and that's really the only issue I've ever had out of it. It's modified, it's tuned, has headers, exhaust, you know, all that good stuff. And I have friends that also have 86s and BRZs, and none of them have really ever had major problems out of the transmission, the engine, the electronics in the car. It's been super sound for all of us because I have a few friends that do have some, and we've had them for years and they run really well. So I would recommend this car because they're pretty cheap on the used market and they're really fun to drive, especially if you're around back roads. And now the fifth and final car on this list is the Audi TT Mach 2. Now, not the 2008 year model, as there were faults in that year model, but it was just limited to 2008. So if you pick up a 2009 or later Audi TT Mach 2, you will not suffer any of the DSG issues, which were extremely prevalent in the 2008 model year. And you may be sitting there saying to yourself, well, Scion, it's a European car, it's an Audi, it's not going to be very reliable since it's German luxury, that's not very reliable. Well, actually, this Audi TT is pretty reliable. It's got a good motor underneath the hood. Transmission problems are basically non-existent in the 2009 and later model years, and it's obviously a really fun car to throw around both on the track and just to take to work. You know, you'll feel cool driving it, whether you're driving it hard or just commuting in it. It'll get good gas mileage. In my opinion, it's a little on the expensive side, but if you could pick up an Audi TT, it probably would be your best bang for your buck on this list. So if you made it this far in the video, chances are you probably like what you've been watching. So I'm gonna put another one of my videos that a lot of people like on the screen right now. It'll either be in the middle of the screen or up in the corner, not sure yet. But for my subscribers out there that have stuck around for this long, I am extremely sorry. I haven't posted since, I don't know, probably January or February at this point. But it's been a while. I was just trying to get my degree out of the way. But that's done with now, so I can make this a lot more of a priority, put out videos for you guys, hopefully that you guys enjoy. You know, welcome back. I'm gonna be making videos 3-4 times a week now. I promise this time I will be making them 3 to 4 times a week. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, follow along for more content like this, sub to the channel, share with your friends, all that good stuff. But for now, this is ScionLyfe signing out.